The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, O Lord.
The sisters, Martha and Mary, sent this message to Jesus. Lord, the man you love is ill. On receiving the message, Jesus said, "This sickness will not end in death, but in God's glory, as through it the Son of Man, Son of God, will be glorified." Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet when he learned that Lazarus was ill, he stayed where he was for 2 more days before saying to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea." On arriving, Jesus found that Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days already. When Martha heard that Jesus had come, she went to meet him. Mary remained sitting in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "If you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, whatever you ask of God, he will grant you." "Your brother," said Jesus to her, "will rise again." Martha said, "I know he will rise again at the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life. If anyone believes in me, even though he dies, he will live. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she said, "I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who was to come into this world." Jesus said in great distress, with a sigh that came straight from the heart, "Where have you put him?" They said, "See how much he loved him." But there were some who remarked, "He opened the eyes of the blind man. Could he not have prevented this man's death?" Still sighing, Jesus reached the tomb. It was a cave with a stone to close the opening. Jesus said, "Take the stone away." Martha said to him, "Lord, by now he will smell. This is the 4th day." Jesus replied, "Have I not told you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took the stone away. Then Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you for hearing my prayer. I knew indeed that you always hear me, but I speak for the sake of all these who stand round me, so that they may believe it was you who sent me." When he had said this, he cried in a loud voice, "Lazarus, here, come out." The dead man came out, his feet and hands bound with bands of stuff and cloth round his face. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him, let him go free." Many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary had seen what he did and believed in him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
So, brothers and sisters, an extraordinary miracle, this one. In all the public life of Jesus, this is the greatest and most powerful and obviously the most convincing miracle event in the life of Jesus. And yet, it is recorded only in John's Gospel, not mentioned in Matthew, Mark, or Luke. Brothers and sisters, it is because of this miracle they decided Jesus had to die. We read on. They decided to kill Jesus because he was so powerful and he was so direct in this miracle that the authorities decided to kill him, he must die. So despite all of that, it's not mentioned in any of the other three Gospels. It's not the only time that Jesus raised someone from the dead. In Luke chapter 9, we hear and we see, you will remember this, Jesus raises the son of the widow at Nain, the only son, and it is found in Luke. In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus raises the daughter of Jairus. You will remember this also. We have other events where Jesus raised persons from the dead. At the risk of boring you, I will tell you again, there are 7 signs in the Gospel of John. What are those signs? The first sign is the wedding at Cana, when Jesus changed the water into wine. The second sign, the healing of the official son at Capernaum. The third sign, the healing of the paralytic. The fourth sign, the feeding of the 5,000. The fifth sign, Jesus walking on water. The sixth sign, last week, the healing of the blind man. And today, the last of the signs of Jesus in John's Gospel, the raising of Lazarus from the dead. So there are 7 signs in John's Gospel. John does not speak about miracles. John speaks about signs, S-I-G-N-S, signs. This is the 7th sign, the greatest sign. Brothers and sisters, we notice that in John's Gospel, the signs will always speak about something greater than the miracle. So it's pointing to a greater purpose. Notice the text of today. Jesus says, I am glad I was not there, says Jesus, because this is to reveal the glory of God and to reveal the Son of God. That when Jesus goes to the tomb of Lazarus, he prays that those who are there will believe because of this moment. So clearly, the signs is to call the people to believe. Now that's the first point. The second point is this. It's in the symbols that we have here today. And the symbols are very important and very powerful. Jesus gets to the tomb. They say he is 4 days dead. He is not just dead, he is very dead. He is 4 days dead. Why? Because we have to put on again the mind of the first century Jew. We're living in the 21st century. We don't get this. You have to put on the mind of the first century Jew who have a custom or a belief that when a person dies, the soul hovered over the tomb for 3 days. And after 3 days, the soul saw the face change. It would appear that the soul will look at the disfigurement and the corruption of the body, and the soul will go away. So that is their belief. Jesus rose on the 3rd day, not the 4th day, the 3rd day. So this is the mind of the first century Jew. He went there and the body was in the tomb for 4 days. So he's not just dead, he is very dead. A very powerful symbol here, the symbol of the tomb. The darkness of the tomb, the aloneness of the person cut off from community, the imprisonment of a tomb, the emptiness, the breakdown in life when the soul disappears. a very powerful symbol. The symbol of the tomb is related to the symbol of our soul. The diminishing soul, when we are alone, when we are in darkness, we are in prison, when we are in sin, we are in a tomb. All this suggests a damaged soul. The soul is somehow wounded in darkness. Therefore, at this miraculous moment, Jesus calls Lazarus out of darkness, out of sin, out of aloneness, out of his brokenness. The disfigurement symbolized by the stench, by the smell. The person is falling apart. So someday, when you get up and you look in the mirror and you say, I think I'm falling apart, remember, you're talking about your damaged soul. Remember that. I am discouraged. I'm confused. There's no direction in my life. I don't know where I'm going. I am suspicious about my relationships. I'm not sure about my identity. The damaged soul is a very powerful symbol. And then when Jesus calls him forth from the tomb, Jesus says, unbind him, set him free, restore him to community. Now he belongs to a community, not just new life that Jesus gives him. Jesus restores the community gathered there, the community that is in grief, the community that is in emptiness, in separation. That is the mystery of the sign of the miracle. So Jesus restores him to community. Now, what does it mean to us? What does it mean to us? There was an incident in my life some years ago as a very young priest, just ordained, very raw. I say this because it fits into the understanding of Jesus here, because Jesus weeps and he cries at the tomb, and that's very important. By the way, there's one other time where Jesus weeps in the four Gospels, and that's in Luke 19, where Jesus weeps for Jerusalem. You will remember that. He weeps for Jerusalem in the Mount of Olives. He weeps in Jerusalem. So let's go back to what it means to me. Going back to my experience as a young priest in the Church of the Assumption in Petaling Jaya, there was a couple who came to see me for this pre-marriage interview. So okay, I said fine. I welcomed them, come to my office. So they sat down and the interview began. So what date you want? Okay, a time? Okay, fine. We took out the forms and we started to fill in their names. Then fill in the addresses. Okay, the groom, what's your address? Okay. And the bride, what's your address? And then I stopped. You are living together. You're living together. Now, we're talking about 25 years ago. Even in Petaling Jaya, that was a little unusual. You're living together. I put my pen down, and I very gently, very kindly, I said to them, I have to tell you this because I owe it to you in the power of Jesus Christ. I owe it to you to tell you this. Then I explained the gospel, so the gospel's call to holiness and the holiness of life. After I said this to you, I will never bring it up again. I will honor you. I will respect you. I'm not your judge. I'm your friend. In just a few moments of kind conversation, I explained the call to holiness. And when I finished explaining this call to holiness, that young woman, tears running down her face, looked at me and said, "Father, you don't understand. You don't understand. My parents went through a terrible, hostile, bitter marriage and divorce. I'm terrified of marriage. I'm terrified of getting married. I'm so fearful what I saw in my parents' marriage life and divorce. I'm so fearful. I'm so frightened to get married. I had to live with this man to make sure that he was the right person. I had to do that." Now this came out of her tears, came out of her pain. And of course my left brain kicked in and I said, "Are you sure now, after living with this man, that he is the right person?" And she said, "Yes, he is the right person." Then my canonical brain, my legal brain, set in, and I said, "Then if he's the right person now that you've discovered, then there's no reason for living together again, isn't it, together?" And I thought it was very clever, It sounded very logical. They left after that, and I received a note next day. They had cancelled the wedding. And I never saw them again till today. I've never seen them, saw them again. And I questioned myself after that, I questioned myself. What did I do wrong here? I questioned myself. What did I do wrong here? And I came to the conclusion. I spoke to them from the mind. They spoke from the heart. Two different conversations, two different languages. She spoke out of her pain, from her tears. I spoke from the law, from the mind. I never connected with her pain, never shared her tears. Now that's important. That's part of the teaching of today's gospel. Jesus wept because he connected with the sadness, with the tears of the moment. Thereafter, I realize and I resolve that when anyone comes to me, the first question I have to ask and have it in my mind is, what language are they speaking? What language are they speaking? The language of the heart, the language of pain, the language of fear, the language of uncertainty. And if that's their language, I have to meet them there. If I'm going to call them to life, come forth, belong, that's part of the language I need to speak to them. For this is the revelation of the Son of God becoming man. Son of God, and he is human. He is shedding tears. So, brothers and sisters, to end, wherever you are in your life, wherever you are, with your children or with your elders, with your closest friends, wherever you are in life, if somebody speaks to you from the heart, feel the anxiety, feel the pain, feel the uncertainty, the wound and the tears. We must make sure we connect. We must listen. Stand with Jesus, weep with Jesus, connect with the Lord. It's a beautiful gospel we have today. Jesus, the Son of God, wept. He listened with the heart. invitation for us today. Listen with our heart. Okay? Right?